Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to EduSat Live Lectures. Dear friends, today in global environmental conflicts we will be talking about sustainable energy. To discuss this topic we have with us our subject expert Dr. Archana Verma. Dr. Verma is a fellow at Indian Institute of Advanced Research at Shimla. Without further ado, I would like to welcome ma'am to our studios and request her to start the lecture. Welcome ma'am.
Thank you very much. So today we are talking about sustainable energy, and before I begin to talk about how many forms of sustainable energy are available to us, I would like to explain what exactly is sustainable energy. It is an energy form of energy that can be naturally replenished. It can be available on a long-term basis, and the technology that is used to derive this energy improves the energy efficiency. These are the three characteristics of sustainable energy. Now, this is counter to the non-sustainable energy that we have been using, the human civilization has been using for many thousand years. The non-sustainable energy are basically fossil fuels available to us in the form of coal, oil and petrol. Now, the reason why these are called non-sustainable energy is that they are derived from materials which cannot be replenished, they cannot be found on a prolonged basis, and they cause a lot of pollution. So, for example, while burning coal or while using petrol and oil, a lot of carbon dioxide is emitted and other types of poisonous gases and chemical particles are emitted which pollute the atmosphere, both earth, water and air. And it leads to global warming, climate change and different types of ecological imbalance in the atmosphere. So, sustainable energy is now there is a great emphasis in the world, across the world, to use sustainable energy rather than non-sustainable versions of energy. Now, before I begin to talk about the various forms of sustainable energy, I would like to talk about biomass energy, which you will find in many types of reading material, both online and in print, that they call it sustainable. But we have to ask the question from ourselves, is biomass energy really sustainable? Now, first, what is biomass energy? It is derived from plants and animals, and their sources are wood, animal remains and garbage dumped by human beings. Now, these are all organic materials, and when they are burnt, then you can get energy out of it. But it is believed that this is sustainable because forests can be regrown, trees can be regrown, and animals keep on dying, so you can keep on getting animal remains, and garbage also, the human society will keep on dumping garbage. So, because of this, it is believed that it is sustainable energy. But we have to problematize this issue, because the forests, they have to be cut down to burn wood, and unless we grow new trees faster than the forests which we are cutting down, then the forests which are cut down, they lead to depletion of environment, they lead to all kinds of ecological balance. So that is why this type of biomass energy is not sustainable. Moreover, the animal remains, they have to be used on a much slower pace, and forests have to be, trees have to be grown at a much higher pace, at a much faster pace than the trees that are being cut down. And human societies often don't keep these things in calculation. So because of this, there is a need to rethink whether biomass energy is sustainable. It is actually not sustainable. So this notion we have to revise. Then there is another nuclear energy, about which again it is said that this is a much more cleaner form of energy and this is a much better form of energy than the non-sustainable forms of energy that we have been using, and that is nuclear energy. Now, this nuclear energy is produced by nuclear fission in the nuclear plants, and it produces very large amounts of energy which is used for large industries, mass supply for public consumption, etc. So, it has many kinds of advantages, and it can be made available on a prolonged basis, because as long as you are causing nuclear fission in the nuclear plants, you can have all these huge amounts of energy. But at the same time, nuclear fission and this nuclear plants, they cause lots of radiation in land, water and air, because the chemicals have to be drained into the water, they have to be dumped in underground, and lots of gases and chemicals are emitted, and nuclear radiation is emitted, which also spreads in the air. So, land, water and air, all three forms of pollution exist because of nuclear plants. So, nuclear energy, although can be made available on a long term basis, it is not sustainable. And nuclear energy can cause havoc in the biosphere. So, because of all this, there is a movement across the world to generate energy from sustainable forms of energy resources. And what are these sustainable forms of energy? Wind, water, solar, geothermal and ocean. So, in this lecture, we will study a little bit about all these sustainable forms of energy. Now, hydropower is energy generated from water. When water is released with great force from a higher altitude to a lower altitude, then with that force the electricity is generated, and turbines are used to turn this water at great force and to release and send it to generators where the electricity is generated with the force with which the water is coming. And because water cycle is renewable, this is renewable and sustainable form of energy. It can be made to produce again and again, because water cycle will keep on getting renewed all the time. So, hydropower is one of the cheap and low cost effective and sustainable form of energy. And it has three forms in which hydropower is generated: from large reservoirs, where a large body of water, for example in a river or lake, it is dammed and a reservoir is formed, and from that reservoir, when the water is released with great force, then that force is harnessed by the turbines, and generator is used to generate the energy. Another form is pump station, where two reservoirs are used, one at a higher level and the other at a lower level, and the water is moved between these two reservoirs with great force to generate energy. The third is run of the river, that is, when a river is flowing, then without building a reservoir, they build an embankment, and when the water is coming from a higher altitude to a lower altitude, with that force they generate electricity. So, these are three types of hydropower, and it is one of the most widely used form of renewable and sustainable energy in the world. The other great form of energy which is used in the form of sustainable energy is wind energy. It is produced by wind currents. Now, when there is great temperature, high temperature at one point and low temperature at another point, then wind flows from high temperature to low temperature, and with that current is generated, and when this wind blows at a great speed, this wind current then can be harnessed to generate electricity. And again, to generate electricity by harnessing this wind current, wind turbines are used and generators are used, and these turbines then are used to harness this wind current which is blowing from hot to cold temperature. And there are certain factors that are involved that regulate the amount of electricity that is generated through wind energy. One is speed of wind, temperature and location, because topography and there are certain places in the world such as Netherlands where you have great winds blowing all the time, the mountain areas where wind blows at great speed, and temperature, because you are regulating the temperature between wind currents, all these things, then regulate how much wind electricity you can generate from wind energy. Again, wind turbines are used to turn these wind currents, and then it is sent to the generator with the help of a shaft. And then these wind currents, they rotate the turbine. Turbine looks like a fan. So wind currents rotate the turbine, and then turbine is connected to a shaft which sends the current to the generator. And then generator produces electricity with the wind that is coming with great force. So that is the technology behind wind turbines and wind energy generation. There are two types of wind turbines: horizontal axis, that is the axis is horizontal and the turbine rotates like a clock, either in the clockwise or in the anti-clockwise direction according to the direction of the wind. The other is vertical axis, that is the turbine is placed like this and the fans rotate like this, like the egg beater. So there are two types of turbines which are used to generate electricity from wind turbines, wind energy, and when they need to generate large amount of electricity from wind, then they use horizontal axis. This type of windmill produces more energy, and when they need less supply of energy, then they use vertical axis. So these are two types of axis for wind turbines that are used. Now we come to the part 2 of the lecture, where I will be talking about some other forms of energy and also about global policy, etc. Now in this part, geothermal energy is one of the more modern and newer forms of energy that is sustainable in nature, which is produced. This geothermal energy is derived from the core of the earth, because in the millions of years ago our planet was very, very hot, and gradually it has cooled down. So what has happened is that the outer surface of the planet has cooled, but the inner core of the earth is still very, very hot. It is at a very high temperature. So because of this very high temperature in the core of the earth, the minerals and the rock surfaces, the rock layers that are underground, they get melted, they melt, and the forest from primeval period that decayed and they got submerged, they got subdued underground, they went underground. They also they are pressurized by this great temperature inside the earth, and then they produce energy. So because of all this primeval heat that is trapped inside the earth, all this reaction is happening inside the earth, and it is producing a lot of heat and a lot of energy. So this molten form of material that is coming out is molten magma, and by modern technology they intrude inside the core of the earth, and they touch this magma and they bring out the heat that is coming out of the molten magma. And when it touches the groundwater, underground water, then this underground water becomes very hot, and this underground water also comes out in the form of hot water. So there are two types of energy that is coming from geothermal form of energy. One is this molten magma and the heat that is generating from it, and the other is the hot water. So this hot water is also harnessed exactly in the shape, exactly in the case of hydel power. So this hot water is also harnessed, and this molten magma is also touched to bring the energy out. Now this is the technological way of bringing energy out of the core of the earth, but there are also some natural forms of geothermal energy existing in the world. And what are these natural forms? Volcanoes, hot springs, and geysers are the natural forms. Geothermal reservoirs are made by human beings. So volcanoes, hot springs, and geysers, they actually are formation through which this energy from the core of the earth is coming out in the form of molten lava, as in the case of volcano, or in the form of very hot water, as in the case of hot spring and geyser. Now, hot spring and geyser are warm because there is so much of energy inside the earth, and this water is coming from inside the earth. Volcano throws out molten lava because it is that same material which is getting melted inside the earth, and it is coming out through the volcano. So, these forms of geothermal energy are also tapped not in India so far, but in Western countries. And California is a place in the US where geothermal energy is produced in very high quantity, and it is used at a very high rate. However, India's geothermal resources are not yet tapped, even though India doesn't have any active volcanoes, but India has a number of hot water springs and geysers, but these have not been yet tapped for geothermal energy. One of the very important form of sustainable energy is solar energy, and this is because sunlight is the most abundant, and it is forever coming to us. It will keep on coming to us as long as sun exists, which means as long as we exist, and it is the cleanest form of energy. However, it cannot be harnessed so easily, and it cannot be used so easily, because sunlight comes when the sun is there, it doesn't come when the sun is not there, and we cannot store it. If only we could store it, then we do not really need any other form of energy in the world. So, efforts have been made to invent technologies to harness this solar energy. Now, so far there are two forms of technology through which solar energy is tapped. One is called active form of solar energy, in which they use photovoltaic cells, that is called PVC, to convert solar energy into electricity. So, these cells are installed into solar panels, and these panels are placed on top of the building, and these panels capture sunlight, and when this sunlight enters the PVC, the photovoltaic cells, these cells then convert sunlight into electricity, and then this electricity is channeled to be used in different forms of machines, industries, and several other mechanisms. The other form of solar energy is passive form of solar energy, in which solar panels are tilted at the angle so that they capture the maximum sunlight, and because of which they are usually installed on buildings that face the southern direction. But they are also installed on other buildings, but southern direction is preferred. And then when these solar panels they capture energy, then this energy is used to heat some metal, and then it is used usually for heating and cooling systems of rooms, heating water, heating reservoir, boilers, etc. So, the active form is used for electricity production, and the passive form is used for heating. Now, UNDP report on solar energy shows that different regions across the world, they have the potential to use solar energy in great capacity, and this chart here shows how North America has the maximum capacity of 7,410 exajoules. Solar energy is measured in exajoules. So, 7,410 for North America, and Western Europe 914. And when you compare it to Asia and Africa, West Asia and North Africa show 11,060, which is even more than North America. And then Sub-Saharan Africa shows 9,528. Why? Because West Asia and Africa, they contain some of the hottest regions in the world. And if solar energy can be harnessed in West Asia and Africa, then it means that those regions have the maximum capacity to use solar energy. Then South Asia, where we live, it is again a tropical country, which means we get bright sunlight and hot sun for most parts of the year. So again, our capacity is 1,339. So, you can see that this chart shows according to UNDP that solar energy is not yet tapped properly, and if the technology develops, then we do not really need any other type of energy. The last form of sustainable energy is tidal energy. You have dynamic tidal power and you have tidal lagoons. Now, what are dynamic tidal power? The tides, when they come at great speed at high tide, then they harness the high tide energy that is coming, the force that is coming with high tide, and that is called dynamic tidal power. Tidal lagoon is an artificial lake-like formation that is created by embanking part of the sea. So, both these technologies are used to produce electricity from tidal waves. Now, this again has some influencing factors, some factors which change the capacity of that particular area to produce tidal energy, and that is coastline, the formation of coastline, geography, topography, and sea currents, because we know that there are some warm currents and there are some cold currents. So, water flows from warm current area to cold current area, and this again regulates the amount of electricity that can be generated under the sea by using the mechanism of tidal energy. Now, tidal turbines, again turbines are used to harness the energy coming from tides. Again here, tidal barrages are built from the coastline and extending into the sea, and water, when it comes with the tide, it is used by the tidal turbines are used to rotate this water at great force, and it is pushed into the generators, and then when it comes with great force to generator, then generator generates electricity. And there are basically tidal turbines and tidal energy has been used to some extent across in various countries, but the countries which are using it to the maximum benefit are France, Canada, and UK. Especially France was the first country to use it in modern times, and UK has used it to great benefit. Now, we are living in the age of information technology and sustainable energy. We have to understand that information technology and sustainable energy, we are living in an age where these two are at crossroads, and they are also contradictory to each other. The IT industry uses a lot of energy, and it is not using energy efficiently at the moment. All these computers, softwares, other types of hardwares and other types of information technology gadgets which we are getting, they are using a very high level of energy, and most of this hardware is non-recyclable, and when it is discarded, then it also causes pollution. But even at the manufacturing stage, the pollution is caused by while manufacturing all this hardware. So, IT industry may be very good in many ways, but when you look at it from the viewpoint of sustainable energy, then IT industry is actually not doing, it does not have a great record in harnessing energy and using energy in a sustainable manner. Now, we are also in a stage when third world countries such as China and India has also joined this race now. They are what they are doing is that we are establishing manufacturing centers for multinational companies, which means that all this IT industry that is coming to India, then it will intensify the pollution and ecological disruption that is happening. So, what will happen is that third world countries such as India don't already have a mechanism to stop the destruction of ecology. They don't have the know-how and proper technology. And when we intensify the manufacturing industry to we relocate the multinational manufacturing industry in China and India, then we are not taking only our own load on the environment, but we are also taking the load of all these developed countries on ourselves. So as a result, then the sustainable environment that should be produced and the destruction of ecology that would have happened at a much slower pace, it gets speeds up much faster, and the third world countries' destruction of environment becomes much faster than the developed countries, because they are sending their manufacturing units to third world countries. So this is related to the industrial economic model which we have created. So there is a great need when we are creating these types of policies, there is a great need to devise a program so that we don't increase the pollution for the pollution at the manufacturing stage of all these IT industries manufacturing hardware. Because that is very important, because in the long run then we are causing damage to our own environment, our own immediate environment, and in the long run it is also going to affect the environment of the entire planet. So that is why there is this great debate that China and India are causing a lot of global warming. So of course we are the most populous nations in the world, and we have a great need to consume energy for ourselves, but we should also see how much of global warming is happening because we are taking the manufacturing units of the industries of multinational companies, and this should be stopped. Now when global policy is decided on various issues, then obviously the various countries record in carbon footprints, in ecological balance, in using sustainable energy, this is also taken into account, and this actually plays a role in helping or not helping a particular countries stand on the global policy on any issue. It may be trade, it may be any economic issue, or it may be some international policy issues, but there are different features which of a country's record which influence that global policy. Now, because environment is something which we all share, and environment is something which we all it belongs to all of us. So that is why it is every country's responsibility to share this burden. And not only every country, I mean it is a collective burden of the whole planet. But as I said, the third world countries, they don't have the technological know-how, they don't have the infrastructure developed enough to manage the ecological sustenance. Now they already don't have a developed ecological infrastructure. On top of it, when they take the burden of these Western countries, the developed countries, then it means that they are adding to their own burden of ecological sustenance and burden of ecological destruction in their own immediate region. So then this further downgrades the third world countries' record of sustainable development. So third world countries have to be very careful about what type of policies they are formulating just to get money and just to improve their immediate economic needs, because in the long run this is going to go against them. At some stage, for example, now we are in a stage when the whole world is asking why India and China are producing so much of global warming. But the other part of the world also has a role to play in it. This is a part of the argument that has not been placed forward so far in the global policy. So this has to be brought into focus, and the third world countries themselves have to become conscious that they should not formulate policies just for immediate financial gain, because in the long run it is going to harm them. So developed countries, they should not shift their manufacturing units to third world countries like China and India. They should devise a technological model which produces less pollution, and they should manufacture their own products in their own region, so that the onus of sustainable development remains with them and it does not get shifted to the third world countries while they use lots of resources and they lead a developed form of life, and the third world countries are manufacturing their products on a large scale and they are adding to their own environmental destruction. So this should not happen. In an ideal world, the developed countries, first, their technology should be such that it does not cause a lot of exploitation of resources, natural resources. It does not cause too much of environmental destruction. And second, they should manufacture their own products rather than shifting it to China and India and other third world countries. Because in the long run, this does not help anybody, because as I said, environment belongs to everybody. In the long run, the climate change will affect everybody. So we should not compartmentalize our world that way. Now, I would also like just briefly touch upon this the current industrial economic model, which uses the rate of exponential growth as an index of profit generation. What is rate of exponential growth? It says that, in briefly speaking, it says that every year an industries or a business houses profit should not only remain it should not only make profit, but the profit should increase every year. Now this means that especially industries which are involved in exploiting a lot of natural resources, every year they are going to exploit more and more natural resources because they have to make more and more profit. So this rate of exponential growth theory has to end. Unless we end it, the various business houses across the world are going to keep on exploiting the natural resources at a much more faster rate every year, because they have to make profit every year to show profit, to show that they are growing. And ultimately the cost is on environment. So this rate of exponential growth theory has to go if we want to save our environment, because it is directly linked to a mass scale exploitation of natural resources. So this rate of exponential growth theory does not lead to sustainable development. It has actually caused most of the environmental damage in the world. So instead of trying to speed up our profit every year by increasing the profit every year, we have to take it a little slowly. Just because we want to make economic profit, we can't damage our environment. This is a very basic idea which everybody in the world has to accept. Otherwise, there is no way we can save the environment. And we can use sustainable forms of energy, but let's remember that even for producing sustainable forms of energy, we need equipment and we need to use electricity, we need to use power, and all these equipments, electricity, power require those forms of technology which are not sustainable. So we should not think that any form of energy is absolutely clean. Even sustainable forms of energy lead to certain types of pollution, certain types of environmental degradation. If we want to finish this degradation, then first we have to stop the rate of exponential growth theory that is linked to the industrial economic model of today. Second, we have to absolutely slow down the profit a little bit, and we have to develop such industrial models which don't use these types of ecologically negative technologies. And even if we are producing sustainable forms of energy, we are causing damage to environment. This is something that we have to remember, and there is no other option to it, because we have only one planet. Thank you.
On that note, ma'am, I would just wanted to ask you a question. What do you think is the significance of sustainable development?
Yeah, this is a very important question. What is the significance of sustainable development? Because if we don't have a sustained planet, if we don't have an environment that can be renewed and that can be sustained over a long period of time, then ultimately this is causing damage to all the life on the earth. It is causing damage to the environment, it is causing damage to flora and fauna, and it is basically poisoning the atmosphere, and it is basically killing the planet slowly. So we have only one option, that we go for sustainable development, because only by sustainable development this planet can sustain, human civilization can sustain, our other forms of life on earth can sustain. So if we want to save our civilization, if we want to save our land, air, water, if we want to save our flora and fauna, that we have to go for sustainable development, because only then we can save this planet. We cannot keep on damaging our planet and hoping that things will rectify by themselves. It is not going to happen.
Okay, then you are saying that all those that we have discussed so far, and then this all falls in the larger contours of sustainable development. These are the various mechanisms how we can sustain, since we need development anyhow.
Yes.
And but there has to be sustainable way. There has to be sustained
Yeah,
process.
what I am saying is that the kind of developmental models that we have evolved so far, these models actually damage the environment. So if we want to develop but at the same time save our environment, then we have to rethink our models of development, and we have to bring in those sustainable models of development which don't cause damage to environment, which believe in recycling the resources, regrowing the resources, rather than going on damaging the resources at an increasingly fast pace every year. This is not the way to save the planet. So our models of development, models of economic prosperity, models of industry have to change by all means, and you don't have an option on this.
Okay, on that note, thank you ma'am for this very enriching discussion, and thank you dear friends for watching our show. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.